transition there, so you can let me know when it's time. Right. Good afternoon and welcome to UnitedTV. My name is Kemal Erkan. Today is April 25th, 2025. Our session our start time changed a little bit, but it was for a good reason because we have our Congresswoman Sarah McBride joining us. We can welcome her right now. Sarah has previously joined us several times, actually, probably this may be your sixth time. Now, as a friend, as someone whom I supported very much, and I believe in what she has done, Sarah is extremely important, not only for Delaware, but also for everyone in this country. Her life is an extremely important and good example for others, and therefore she's always going to be special. And Sarah, how are you doing?
Well, I'm great now that I am back. I am so excited to join you for, as you mentioned, I think the sixth time. Our conversations are always enjoyable, and it's great to be here.
Well, thank you again. Now, I know this transition from the state level to the country level is going to be is probably challenging. So I want to actually start with that and then see how you are doing, how you are adjusting that.
Well, I'm good at transitions. I am loving representing Delaware. It is the professional privilege of my life. I loved serving in the Delaware State Senate. We were able to get a lot done, as I have talked about over the years. We were able to pass my Healthy Delaware Families Act passed in 12 weeks for Delaware workers. We were able to pass my Healthy Delaware Families Act that our Medicaid program is well funded and better meeting the needs of vulnerable Delawareans, roughly 1 in 5 Delawareans that rely on it for health coverage. We were able to pass that legislation, resulting in the largest ongoing infusion of new resources into our state's Medicaid program since the ACA. Now, obviously, in Congress, instead of entering a Congress that is continuing the progress that I was able to be a part of in the Delaware State Senate, I'm entering a Congress where I'm having to defend Delaware from far right-wing policies that would undermine healthcare for Delawareans, that are policies that are raising costs and prices for Delaware workers, retirees, and their families. And so a lot of this transition has been focused on defending our state, while obviously also continuing to deliver for Delawareans by building out our office and introducing legislation and addressing the constituent needs that come to our office on a range of issues, including helping to return $360,000 to Delawareans in the form of Social Security checks, veterans benefits, tax refunds that Delawareans were owed that they weren't yet getting from the federal government. And so it's been busy. It's been a lot more defense than proactive progress that we would have seen had the Democrats been in the majority in Congress. But it's still an incredible privilege and responsibility, and one that I am in awe of every single day that I am here in Delaware or down at the U.S. Capitol.
So the first 100 days is extremely important for these transitions. Yet the Congress position is, elected every 2 years. The term is one of those. By the time you settle, then the other election is coming, and then yet you have to work. If there was no election tomorrow, but then you still have to work like there's an election next day. So this makes it very challenging. Now, and I because you have talked about this already in so many different places, I don't want to spend too much time on some of the difficulties that you actually encountered. Now, as a close friend of yours, I took some of them personally, and we discussed some of them in this session. Now, have seen myself, like how much emotional I got versus how you were handling these situations. And now that's why I was, when I was introducing you, I was saying that you are someone who is a great example for everyone, for any parents out there. If they want to show someone, here's an example what you can have done in life with all the difficulties and how you are approaching. This is so great. So how do you manage this? How do you make this so almost seamless so that I'm like, she's just doing so good?
Well, thank you. That means a lot. And part of the way I'm able to deal with the extra stuff that comes my way in Congress is because of the love and the support of friends like you, my family, and honestly, Delawareans across the state. I got to tell you, there is nothing better than being here in Delaware, traveling across the state. We've racked up about 3,000 miles, more than 3,000 miles on our odometer since I was sworn in January, traveling to Newcastle, Kent, Sussex, meeting with Delawareans of every background, and the love and the support that has been evident across the state in response to some of the treatment that I've faced in Congress has deepened my love for this state. It has filled my tank and filled my heart. It has energized me and motivated me in this work, and it makes it all so much easier. Look, there are a handful of people in Congress who get a lot of attention, and that's really what they're there to do. They're there to get attention rather than to deliver for their constituents. They have to answer their constituents about that fact, but they are in sole pursuit of attention, of headlines, of clicks on social media, of likes on social media. And in order to achieve that, they employ the strategies of reality TV. And on a Bravo reality TV show, what is the best way to get airtime? You pick a person, you pick a fight with them, you throw wine in their face, and that gets attention. That drama draws attention. And look, I refuse to let them clout chase off of me. I refuse to contribute to an environment where they get even more airtime, they get even more attention, they get even more clicks and headlines. And the best way for me to do that is to not give them the response that they want. The response they want is for me to get upset and get angry and to yell back at them and even just to respond. And I know for me, the best way that I can begin to take the incentive out of their behavior is just to not give them the response that they're seeking. And again, it's a handful of people. It's not easy. I'm not going to say it doesn't, it doesn't hurt. But it pales in comparison to the challenges that so many people that I represent are facing every single day. And two, I really do think it says much more about the folks who are treating me that way than it does about me. And I hope those folks find healing in their lives. I hope those folks find the comfort, confidence, and security that they are seeking, that is apparently eluding them and resulting in them behaving the way they do. And I will just say, I think most people there are serious people, and it's one of the reasons why I've found success in working in a bipartisan collaborative fashion with the folks who are there to be serious, unlike some of the reality TV show stars that are in the House right now.
Right. So, well, that's what I was going to say. Like, there are right now, one of the things you also say, there are so many important issues that we have to deal with. So the worst thing that someone can do is pick these little issues, almost like childish. Like, I'm like, there's no meaning of, there's nothing meaningful that I see when problem is other people are able to see it. Even their own people are able to see this, and it's childish. So, but you are doing a great job. And one of the it's kind of like my next question is, because you are someone who probably have sponsored so many bipartisan bills, right? So now you were never divisive anyway. You were always kind of getting people together on different parts of the Senate and different part of the aisle. So you have done this, you have demonstrated this. Now, do you see with the current climate in the country, do you think you are going to have issues to have the same approach, meaning bipartisan bills and being able to sponsor or co-sponsor them?
So, as you mentioned, when I was in the state Senate, I was proud that nearly every bill that I introduced and passed with bipartisan support, including some pretty major Democratic priorities, legislation around paid leave and healthcare and immigration. I was able to find bipartisan consensus on an immigration bill that I brought forward in the state Senate. And obviously, national politics is a lot more toxic and partisan than Delaware state politics is. And it's certainly harder to work in a bipartisan fashion, but it's not impossible, certainly not beyond my capacity. I am proud that during my 100 days, I have introduced as the lead sponsor several bills, almost all of which are bipartisan, including the Ending Scam Credit Repair Act, ESCRA. That's legislation that provides consumer protections for people across this country against the predatory practices of so-called credit repair organizations that charge large upfront fees on false promises to consumers in Delaware and across the country. Introduced that a week into my term with bipartisan support. Most recently, I introduced the Save Our Poultry Act. People on this Zoom probably know, on this YouTube channel probably know that agriculture is a huge issue, industry in Delaware, and chickens are,
especially for the south part of the state, right? So that's a huge
100%.
Yeah. That's
we have.
So what can you actually elaborate that a little bit? Like what impacts do you kind of foresee with the legislations with that part of the business?
Sure. Well, so let me I'll mention this bipartisan thing, and then I'll get into those bills in just a second. But the Save Our Poultry Act to support farmers and lower the cost of groceries for Delawareans, introduced just a couple of weeks ago with bipartisan support. I've co-sponsored more than 120 bills over the last 100 days, 75 of which are bipartisan. 24 are actually led by Republicans. So bipartisanship is possible. I'm finding those opportunities, and I'm leading opportunities that are bipartisan right now. And so again, while there are a handful of folks who won't work with any Democrat, can barely work with their own Republican colleagues who seem to be obsessed with what bathroom other people use or what pronouns other people use, there are people there who are serious on the other side of the aisle, and I'm finding opportunities to work with them. These two bills that I'm really proud to have introduced that are at the top of my current legislative agenda. We're going to be introducing more bills in the coming weeks. The first one I mentioned, ESCRA. These so-called credit repair organizations charge large upfront fees on promises that the consumer will get an improved credit report. So often we see these organizations either use short-term gimmicks to present a mirage of an improved credit report, or they don't even just do anything at all. There's no action taken. This legislation ends that practice. If consumers are paying a credit repair organization, it needs to be because a service has been provided. That's a bipartisan bill that I've introduced. The other one, the Save Our Poultry Act, this is legislation that was actually the byproduct of constituent outreach. A farmer in Middletown reached out to me, a guy named Mike Puglisi, who shared with me the experience he had in 2022 when he had to cull his entire stock of chickens. He's an egg farmer. He had to cull his entire stock of chickens because of exposure to avian flu. Now, Mike was fortunately able to survive the financial toll of eliminating his entire stock of chickens, but a lot of farmers can't. And even if they can survive eliminating their stock because of exposure to avian flu, the fact that they have to cull their stock reduces the supply of eggs and chickens on the market, which then increases costs for consumers at the grocery store. And so our legislation, bipartisan legislation, would unlock critical federal funding to explore effective methods to combat avian flu here in the United States that protect our chickens, our farmers, our trade, and the market, while obviously also lowering costs for consumers. I'm hopeful we'll be able to move that legislation forward to have an urgent response to this avian flu crisis that is increasing costs for consumers and harming farmers, that we'll be able to have a response that meets the scope and the scale of the problem that we're facing in our ag industry here in Delaware and across the country.
Excellent. So you mentioned you guys traveled almost 3,000 miles since you are in the office. Now, what are the unique challenges that you see? Like, because it's one thing is we can talk about these things in the air, but then when you go and then when you're in the field, you see different things, different challenges. Like you may know this, but personally, I don't do a lot of shopping. Like I don't like even for like grocery shopping, I don't. So, but every once in a while I go, I can observe a lot of stuff happening. Like every time I go one of the places, there's these elderlies, like they're not like, I'm not saying 70, 75-year-old, they're easily 80, 85, 90-year-old. They're trying to pay the bill. Like if you maybe go there every day, you can maybe notice those, but then when you do once in a while, like the way that I do, you can actually notice those right away. So, and those are, to me, it's very interesting, and then it's kind of like also difficult to process. So I'm sure you have seen so many different things, and what, like maybe from the surprising standpoint, or just challenges, like what have you seen so far in that 3,000 miles?
Yeah. So, 3,000 miles and counting. And I got to tell you, the best part of this job is getting to spend my days traveling across Delaware, meeting with farmers and first responders, meeting with teachers and parents, healthcare providers, nurses and doctors, small business owners, nonprofit leaders, everyday Delawareans across the state, red parts and blue parts of Delaware, north and south, bigger cities and smaller towns. And there are a number of themes that come up. The first is obviously the pre-existing need to lower the cost of living for people. That predated the last election. It's been made worse, unfortunately, by this administration's policies. But the cost of living, making sure that people can afford to buy a home, can get childcare, can get the health care they need without breaking the bank, that they can go to the grocery store and afford groceries. The big and small costs of living right now are making the American dream unaffordable and inaccessible for so many people across this country. And I hear about that everywhere I go. And so lowering the cost of housing, healthcare, childcare, everyday goods is critical. And unfortunately, we're moving in the opposite direction on a lot of those issues right now. One of the reasons why I introduced the Save Our Poultry Act is not just to protect our farmers, which are a critical part of Delaware's economy, but also to address avian flu, which increases the costs of eggs at the grocery store and chickens at the grocery store. And so I'm already working on really tangible cost of living issues that I hear about right now. But beyond that, there is so much frustration and anger and fear as a byproduct of the actions of this current administration. And no matter where I go, I hear anger at what Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress are doing. I hear anger about the efforts to slash and gut critical programs that Delawareans rely on, including the efforts to freeze funding for homeless shelters and domestic violence shelters, for infrastructure projects. Right now, there are $100 million in infrastructure projects that the federal government is withholding from DelDOT to improve our roads and our transit. There's nearly $10 million the federal government is stealing from farmers that are owed to farmers to improve their infrastructure and lower their energy bills. Tens of millions of dollars that's been stolen from the state to prevent the spread of infectious diseases that the federal government's withholding, undermining the state's capacity to do that. Just a couple of just a couple of weeks ago, the administration announced that they'd be cutting funding for manufacturing jobs, for small and medium-sized manufacturing businesses here in Delaware and across the country. I led my colleagues in demanding the administration reverse those cuts, and they listened and did, restoring funding for manufacturing jobs here in Delaware, protecting hundreds of jobs and $75 million in economic activity. But people are upset about the funding freezes that we're seeing at the federal level, unilateral, illegal funding freezes. They're upset about the heartless Republican budget that would result in the largest cut in Medicaid in American history. And I am fighting back every single day alongside Senator Coons and Senator Blunt Rochester to protect Medicaid here in Delaware and across the country from a Republican Congress that seems hell-bent on trying to slash and gut that program alongside food assistance.
So what's the main issue? Like let's focus on maybe on Medicaid, because this is extremely important now, because we are also, from my company standpoint, we are a healthcare provider. On one hand, we have physician shortage that we deal with. On the other hand, we have so many different programs in place that we are already adjusted and we are working with, including Medicare and other Medicaid MCOs. So then now we are talking about funding not being available for Medicaid. What's the bottom line of this? Is this really going to be the case? Like, do you really think that Trump would actually kind of shoot himself on the foot by cutting Medicaid?
Well, yes, I think if given the chance, they will. Look, so I'm sure your viewers know what Medicaid is, as you mentioned, you're in healthcare. But just to give folks the 35,000-foot view, Medicaid is a program that provides health coverage for roughly 1 in 5 to 1 in 4 Delawareans. Roughly 40% of kids have health coverage under Medicaid. This is health coverage for young people, for people living in poverty, for people with disabilities, for seniors who need assisted living. This is health coverage that is life-sustaining and life-saving for hundreds of thousands of Delawareans who rely on it every single day, every single year for their health coverage. It is jointly funded by the state and federal government. Every dollar that the state of Delaware puts in is matched by nearly $2 from the federal government. The current Republican majority in Congress, now twice, has voted on parameters for a budget resolution, for a budget. They haven't written the budget yet, but they have voted twice now on the instructions for how to draft that budget. And in those instructions, they call for the Committee on Energy and Commerce to cut $880 billion from its jurisdiction. The only way to cut that sum from their jurisdiction is to cut either Medicare or Medicaid. The Republicans in Congress have said that they definitely will not touch Medicare in this budget. That means that the only way for them to achieve the stated goal, the stated instruction of cutting at least $880 billion from that committee's jurisdiction is for them to cut Medicaid. The math does not add up unless they do that. Now, they have voted twice now to do that, but they now have to actually write the budget. And if there is enough pressure on Republican members of Congress, there is a chance that they will not listen to their own instructions, that they will go back on their goal, that they will not cut Medicaid. But that requires us to speak out, sound the alarm, fight back. It requires people across this country to urge their members of Congress to protect Medicaid. There is evidence that Republicans in swing districts are already getting scared and pushing back on the proposal. But listen, I'm not going to hold my breath waiting for the courage of Republican members of Congress. They have demonstrated a willingness to fall in line, even when it's deeply unpopular before. And so we have to be vigilant. We can't let our foot off the gas pedal. We got to fight back and make it clear that if they touch Medicaid, there will be consequences come election day for the Republicans who vote for a budget that undermines healthcare for millions of Americans.
That will be a huge mistake because, I mean, as you mentioned, so many people who are benefiting from Medicaid. Maybe in the program itself, there may be some inefficiency that can be fixed, but cutting the eligibility is going to create a huge social issue, in my opinion. Now we already have difficulties in healthcare, so if any type of challenge that's going to make things more difficult, that's not gonna, I mean, as you said, like, I think the consequences is going to be, well, every 2 years we have elections in this country. So, and I think we'll see what that means. Now, I know our time is limited and I want to be respectful to your time. It's a very stressful job. And I know how your schedule is because, trying to schedule our coffee times is, our Turkish coffee at times is kind of like even challenging. So I hope, you take care of yourself, because this is like getting all these difficult challenges and then dealing with personal attacks. And then I think this may be one of the most difficult times in terms of the climate of the politics. And I wish it didn't have to be like this way because there are so many opportunities, but it is what it is. So now, what do you see from your side? Like, what's next in terms of your plans and what do you want to achieve in the next 18 months?
So, first off, there continue to be policies that I'm going to be putting forward that improve benefits for workers, that help to address one of the issues you actually touched on earlier, which is the provider shortages we see across different areas of healthcare and across different types of providers, addressing the healthcare workforce crisis in this state and in this country, which is such a critical part of the solution, is at the center of my agenda. We need more doctors, we need more nurses, we need more CNAs, we need more healthcare professionals across different parts of our healthcare system and in all parts of our state, because you can have coverage, but if you don't have access, if you don't have a quality provider within your area that you can see in a timely fashion, then that coverage is coverage on paper only. And so I'm going to be focusing on building out our healthcare provider workforce here in Delaware and nationally, something that I worked really hard on in Delaware, in the Delaware State Senate, that I want to continue to work on in Congress. But I want to close on something that you touched on, because I think stepping back from the day-to-day policy agenda, you are right. This is a difficult time in our politics, and it's easy to be hopeless in this moment. But one of the things that gets me through this time, one of the things that energizes me beyond being in Delaware and talking to Delawareans and spending time with Delawareans, one of the things that energizes me and provides me hope in this moment is the history of this country, the history that fills the building that I have the privilege of serving, and the history that is heavy in the air in the House chamber. Because one of the things, Kemal, that I feel very deeply is that I am part of an institution, part of a chamber, part of a legislative body that has carried forward the baton through some really difficult challenges in our history. My predecessors have served in really difficult moments, moments, frankly, even more difficult than the ones we face right now. The first week I was in the Capitol, first day I was in the Capitol after getting elected, I was with my incoming freshman colleagues. We hadn't been sworn in yet. It was a week after the election. We enter the Capitol and we go and we gather in Statuary Hall. And that's the chamber that the House sat in, that the House convened in the 1800s, early 1800s. Abraham Lincoln served in that chamber. We gathered in there, and then we walked about 100 feet down the corridor toward the current House chamber, where the House moved in 1857, just before the Civil War. And we entered the House chamber for the first time I had ever been on the floor, and sat in the chairs that we see when we watch the State of the Union. And you can feel the history in that space because you realize as you're there, that is the room where the 13th Amendment to the Constitution to abolish slavery was passed, where the 14th Amendment to the Constitution to grant equal protection was passed. It's the space where women got the right to vote. It's the space where Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security were created. These are the chairs that our predecessors sat in when they voted to pass the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. And you realize the reasons that our predecessors had, that advocates, that activists, that everyday citizens had throughout our history to give up. And you cannot tell me that the reasons for hopelessness now are greater than the reasons for hopelessness at any moment in our history, from enslavement through the Great Depression, through the Industrial Revolution, through the Civil Rights Movement. Every single one of those Americans in every single one of those periods of our history had every reason to give up hope, but they didn't. They were able to persevere, summon their hope, find the light, and ultimately change the world. And I have to believe that if previous generations were able to do it, then so too can we. And that gets me through the day, it gets me through the week, it gets me through this moment in our politics, knowing that yes, these are difficult challenges, but we've been through difficult challenges as a nation before, and we've come out stronger.
Well, I mean, I think what you said is really important, and this is why I believe, looking at these extreme sides on each side, when we are able to eliminate 80% of what we have is able to work together.
Yes.
And people like yourself is able to find a way to make this work. So you have done it here, and I know you are going to be able to do it there as well. And I know this is a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, especially every 2 years you have to go through the elections, and you still have to do the job. It's a lot of difficulties, but I think you are the right person to keep doing what you are doing. We have only one congressperson, and you are our congresswoman, and that's also kind of really important for be the only one. You are representing the entire state, so that's a lot of responsibility, and you are going to do even better. But I know you are putting a lot of efforts out there, and we want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for doing what you are doing. Thank you for being a good friend, and we want to have you back again. I know your schedule is tight, but we also know that there are a lot of things that you want to share with public. As our audience is growing, we want to make sure that we can make you available for them, and then we can be your voice, and then also they can hear you directly from our channel. Well, thank you for so much again joining us.
Thank you so much. Always good to see you, friend. Thanks for having me on again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, so Sarah, I was just waiting for Zoom to because I can see both screens, and sometimes I think our audience, they may kind of wonder what I'm doing, but I'm really just looking at Ethan and his screen to make sure that I'm on the right place. So this was our Congresswoman, Sarah McBride. She's an amazing individual, number one. I think she is going to do a lot of good things. Now, knowing what's happening in the country these days, everyone's job on both sides of the aisle is difficult, but this doesn't mean that it's impossible. So one of the things that we want to complete today's session, since we started a little bit late and understanding everyone's schedule on a Friday, so I just want to finish our comparison of the survey that we have done on Twitter, and as soon as Ethan brings them up, I can go with your schedule, whatever you have. If you just okay, I have that one on. So this was a question that we asked in December 2023, and I repeat the question in April, whether or not people were confident in the government's ability to fix the economic issues. Now, there is an improvement on this. So not like the neutral part is neutral is the same, but then very doubtful goes from 80% to 64%. That's almost 16 percentage point. That's actually is in a positive way changed. So what do we have next? All right, so that one is, so we ask people whether or not, which economic concerns, issues that they have the most. And then the options were job market, healthcare costs, housing, and income inequality. So the answer didn't change. So the housing affordability is still number one, but the percentage of that changed. So it went from 37 to 44%. And the healthcare cost concern went from 30% to 16%, while job market actually is from 13 to 20%. So this tells me that there's many people that are probably concerned about their the future of their jobs. Again, this is a Twitter poll, so that we did with the same wording. We didn't change anything, but it's just giving us an idea how people are thinking, what concerns they have. So, what's the next? That would be all right. So how would you rate the current state of U.S. foreign relations? So surprisingly, that didn't change much. Excellent is 14%, now it's 15%. Not sure is 8%, now it's 6%. And then poor from 78 to 79. So I would say that's probably about the same. So there's not much difference. I guess I would expect more on this one, more changes on this one than the others, but that didn't happen. And our last question was, do you believe economic considerations should influence U.S. foreign policy decisions? And again, there wasn't a huge difference on this one. The yes strongly went from 65 to 62%, while no not really went from 27 to 24, and then unsure is from 8 to 14%. There's some probably some issues, especially with the current topics, the like tariffs and other trade policy issues. A lot of people probably just waiting what to be seen. But the prior question, actually, that's why I was expecting more on that, because there's a lot going on with the trade policy, and then I felt like that would be impacting like our foreign relations, and it didn't. So it's kind of interesting how these things work. So anyhow, that was our Twitter poll. First 4 questions. My goal is to probably repeat the next 4 questions. That's allowing us to compare Biden administration versus Trump administration. The one other issue was participation was a little bit lower than what we had before. And we do promote these, and then I spend the same amount of money. But for whatever reason, I think maybe people are less interested in what's happening, or because now with the Elon Musk being more out there with the Trump administration, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to make out of this. But I'm going to repeat the next 4 questions. But I think we had a total of 12, and I will be sharing those with you guys. Next week, we have the Food Bank of Delaware Chief Operating Officer is going to be with us, Larry Haas. Then we'll be in Turkey for 2 weeks, and I am hoping that we'll have 1 live session from Turkey. And as we have introduced several times in the last 3-4 weeks, Eurasian Economic Summit is going to be in the 2nd week of May, which we will be participating. And then the Turkish Festival is coming in Chicago. Anıl Sural is going to be helping the Turkish society to get together. It's a huge event, and United Medical will be one of the sponsors. So although I may not be in person, I may not be able to be there, I know will be making all of our efforts to be there next year. And then right after we come back, we have Seema Verma, former CMS administrator. The current role is occupied by Dr. Mehmet Az, and we are going to discuss the Oracle Health and Oracle's role in healthcare. And also, we want to bring her into the discussion with the CMS and the changes we may be expecting from the current Trump administration. So that's all we have for today. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for watching us, and stay united. Thank you. There, so you can let me know when it's time.